What if the secret to unbreakable business momentum isn't grit at all? For decades, entrepreneurs have been fed the same dangerous lie. Push harder, grind longer, endure more. We've been told that exhaustion is the price of success, that resilience means clenching your teeth and forcing your way through chaos. And yet, look around. Burnout is everywhere. Brilliant founders collapse. Fast-growing companies implode the moment the market turns hostile. So here's the uncomfortable question most people avoid. If grit alone worked, why are so many relentless people still losing? The truth is, grit without clarity becomes self-destruction. Effort without philosophy turns into panic. And momentum built on emotion never survives volatility. But thousands of years ago, long before venture capital, quarterly earnings, or hustle culture, a group of thinkers faced a world just as uncertain, brutal, and unpredictable as ours. Wars, plagues, political collapse, exile, loss. And instead of breaking, they built an internal system that made them impossible to destabilize. That philosophy was Stoicism, not motivational quotes, not passive acceptance, but a precise operating system for decision-making under pressure. Stoicism teaches something radically different from modern hustle culture. You don't win by controlling the world. You win by controlling how you perceive it, how you respond to it, and how consistently you act within it. In business, that distinction changes everything. Because sustained momentum doesn't come from emotional intensity. It comes from rational consistency. It comes from calm execution while others panic. It comes from making clean decisions when conditions are hostile. In this breakdown, we're going beyond grit. We're going to walk through 10 Stoic rules for building unbreakable business momentum. Principles that help you operate clearly in chaos, detach from noise, outlast volatility, and move forward steadily while others burn out or self-sabotage. This isn't about motivation. This is about durability. This is about becoming the kind of operator the market cannot shake. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Myth of Pure Grit. Why pushing harder is breaking you. Grit has been sold to us as the ultimate virtue of success. Work harder. Stay up later. Push through the pain. Ignore exhaustion. Outlast everyone else. In business culture, grit is praised almost religiously. If you fail, the explanation is simple. You didn't want it badly enough. If you burn out, the solution offered is cruelly ironic. Develop more grit. But here's the reality. Most people never stop to examine. Grit is not a strategy. It's a stress response. Grit is what you rely on when you don't have clarity, when systems are missing, when priorities are blurred, when emotion is driving decisions instead of reason. It feels heroic in the moment, but over time it becomes destructive, because grit demands that you constantly override your nervous system. And no system, human or business, can survive long-term under constant override. Look at how this plays out in the real world. Founders push relentlessly through early success, fueled by adrenaline and urgency. They equate motion with progress, busyness with importance. They say yes to everything. They respond to every email, every opportunity, every fire. For a while, momentum builds. Then cracks appear. Decision quality declines. Emotional reactions increase. Small setbacks feel catastrophic. Teams become tense. Vision narrows. The business becomes reactive instead of strategic. Eventually, exhaustion arrives, not dramatically but quietly. And when volatility hits, market shifts, funding freezes, competitor pressure, grit doesn't save them. It exposes them. Because grit without discipline turns into panic under pressure. This is why so many businesses collapse not at the beginning, but after initial success. They were built on emotional intensity instead of rational foundations. The uncomfortable truth is this. Most burnout isn't caused by working too hard. It's caused by working without philosophical structure. Stoic thinkers understood this long before modern psychology gave it language. They observed that humans don't break from effort alone. They break from internal conflict, from chasing outcomes they can't control, from tying identity to external results, from reacting emotionally to events instead of responding deliberately. In business terms, grit tells you, force the outcome. Stoicism asks a sharper question. What is actually within your control right now? Because once you separate what you can control from what you can't, something profound happens. Mental noise collapses. You stop wasting energy fighting reality. And that reclaimed energy doesn't disappear. It gets redirected into precision. This is where grit culture gets dangerous. It teaches you to treat exhaustion as proof of virtue. Stoicism teaches you to treat clarity as proof of mastery. Grit glorifies suffering. Stoicism minimizes unnecessary friction. And in volatile markets, unnecessary friction is fatal. Consider this. Two entrepreneurs face the same crisis. Revenue drops. A deal falls through. Public sentiment turns. One panics, doubles effort, reacts emotionally, works longer hours, makes rushed decisions. The other slows down, not because they don't care, but because they understand something crucial. Speed without direction accelerates failure. The Stoic approach isn't passive. It's selective. Instead of asking, "How do I push harder?" the Stoic asks, "What response produces the highest leverage?" Instead of emotional grit, they rely on clear perception, controlled judgment, consistent action aligned with principle. This is why Stoicism produces sustained momentum, not short bursts of intensity. Because momentum isn't built by force. It's built by repeatable, rational behavior under pressure. And this is the foundation for everything that follows. Before you can build resilience, before you can outlast volatility, before you can maintain momentum when conditions worsen, you must abandon the myth that suffering equals progress. In the next chapter, we'll introduce the Stoic principle that replaces grit entirely. A framework that instantly reduces stress, sharpens decisions, and restores control even in chaos. The principle that turns uncertainty from a threat into an advantage. Chapter 2. The dichotomy of control. Your Stoic superpower in business. Most stress in business doesn't come from workload. It comes from confusion about control. People exhaust themselves trying to influence outcomes that were never theirs to command. Market sentiment, competitor behavior, investor moods, algorithm changes, economic cycles. They wake up tense not because something has gone wrong, but because something might. The Stoics identified this problem with brutal clarity over 2,000 years ago, and they solved it with a single organizing principle. Some things are within your control. Some things are not. Wisdom begins with separating the two. This is called the dichotomy of control, and it is the foundation of Stoic resilience. Yet in modern business culture, this principle is almost completely ignored. We tell people to own everything, to take responsibility for results, to control the outcome. But here's the reality no one likes to admit. You do not control outcomes. You control inputs. And when you confuse the two, stress becomes permanent. Let's be precise. According to Stoic philosophy, you fully control your judgments, your perceptions, your decisions, your actions, your standards. You do not control market conditions, other people's decisions, customer emotions, competitor moves, timing, luck, external validation. Most entrepreneurs intellectually know this, but emotionally reject it. Because we're taught that surrendering control equals weakness. Stoicism flips that belief on its head. Trying to control the uncontrollable is weakness. Refusing to be ruled by is strength. When a market crashes, the non-Stoic asks, "How do I fix this?" The Stoic asks, "What response is mine to own right now?" That shift sounds subtle. It isn't. It immediately narrows your attention to what actually matters and strips away everything that drains energy without producing leverage. Think about how much mental bandwidth is wasted each day on worrying about competitor growth, obsessing over metrics you can't directly influence, replaying conversations you can't change, anticipating criticism that may never come. None of that improves performance. It only corrodes judgment. The Stoic discipline is ruthless but liberating. If you don't control it, you don't emotionally invest in it. This doesn't mean indifference. It means precision. You still care deeply about results, but you stop attaching your identity to them. Because identity tied to outcomes creates fear. Fear creates reactivity. Reactivity destroys momentum. Let's translate this into practical business behavior. A Stoic entrepreneur focuses on process over applause, preparation over prediction, consistency over intensity. When launching a product, they don't obsess over virality. They obsess over clarity, execution, and learning loops. When a deal collapses, they don't spiral into self-blame. They analyze decisions, extract lessons, and move forward cleanly. This is how Stoics remain calm when others panic. Not because they expect good outcomes, but because they are prepared for any outcome. There's another layer here that most people miss. The dichotomy of control doesn't just reduce stress, it improves decision quality. When emotion is removed from uncontrollable variables, rational thinking returns. You stop overcorrecting. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop making fear-based decisions disguised as urgency. Instead, you act with deliberate restraint. And restraint, in business, is often more powerful than aggression. Stoic leaders don't chase every opportunity. They choose the right ones. They don't respond to every provocation. They conserve energy for what compounds. Here's a simple exercise that transforms this principle into daily practice. When something triggers stress, ask, is this within my direct control? If yes, what is the next rational action? If not, what response preserves my composure and standards? That's it. Over time, this rewires your nervous system. You become harder to shake, less reactive, more consistent. And consistency is the real engine of momentum. Because businesses don't fail from one bad day. They fail from repeated emotional mismanagement. The dichotomy of control is not about passivity. It's about strategic ownership. You take absolute responsibility for your character, your thinking, and your actions, and you release everything else. That release creates space. Space for clearer thinking. Space for better leadership. Space for sustained performance under pressure. Chapter 3. Perception is power. How Stoics turn pressure into advantage. Events do not destroy businesses. Interpretations do. Two companies can face the same market crash, the same competitor disruption, the same economic shock, and experience completely different outcomes. One panics, overreacts, and collapses. The other adapts, sharpens, and emerges stronger. The difference is not resources. It is perception. Stoicism teaches a truth that modern psychology would later confirm. Between an event and your reaction lies interpretation. And interpretation determines everything. Most people believe pressure causes stress. It doesn't. Meaning causes stress. When revenue drops, one founder interprets it as failure. Another interprets it as feedback. Same data, different reality. This is where Stoics gain their edge. They understand that perception is not passive, it is chosen. Epictetus put it simply, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. In business, this insight is explosive, because once you realize events are neutral, you regain agency. Markets don't punish you. Customers don't betray you. Failures don't shame you. Those are stories layered onto raw facts. And stories drive behavior. The untrained mind reacts to setbacks with emotion first. Panic, defensiveness, blame, desperation. The Stoic mind inserts a pause, not to suppress emotion, but to inspect meaning. What am I telling myself about this? That question alone prevents thousands of bad decisions. Let's talk about one of Stoicism's most powerful ideas. The obstacle is the way. This is not motivational fluff. It's a practical framework for reframing constraints as leverage. Every obstacle contains information you didn't have, weaknesses you didn't see, assumptions that need updating. Most people fight obstacles emotionally. Stoics extract value from them. A competitor undercuts pricing? That reveals where your differentiation was weak. A product launch fails? That exposes messaging flaws before scale magnifies them. A partnership collapses? That saves you from long-term dependency. Seen this way, obstacles aren't interruptions to progress. They are instructions. This reframing does something critical. It preserves momentum. Momentum isn't just speed, it's emotional continuity. Once fear takes over, progress becomes erratic. Stoics protect momentum by protecting interpretation. They ask, what does this event demand of me? What skill does this pressure require me to strengthen? What behavior would align with long-term advantage, not short-term comfort? This is not optimism. It's tactical realism. Stoics don't deny difficulty. They remove drama from it. And drama is expensive. Drama clouds judgment. Drama invites impulsive decisions. Drama drains leadership credibility. Calm interpretation, on the other hand, signals competence. Teams trust leaders who don't overreact. Investors back founders who remain rational under pressure. Customers stay loyal to businesses that adapt without panic. Perception becomes a leadership signal. Here's where this becomes practical. Stoic leaders practice cognitive distance. They mentally step back and say, this is happening to the business, not to me. That separation is crucial. When identity fuses with outcomes, every challenge feels personal. Personal challenges trigger ego. Ego distorts reality. Distorted reality leads to poor decisions. Stoics keep identity anchored to values, not results. I am someone who responds with discipline. I am someone who thinks clearly under pressure. I am someone who improves systems, not reacts emotionally. That identity stabilizes perception, and stabilized perception creates consistent behavior. Let's apply this to daily operations. When metrics drop, the Stoic doesn't catastrophize. They diagnose. When feedback stings, they don't defend. They analyze. When uncertainty rises, they don't freeze. They prepare. This is how Stoicism turns volatility into advantage. While others burn energy fighting reality, Stoics align with it. While others seek comfort, Stoics seek clarity. And clarity compounds. Over time, this discipline creates a reputation. You become known as the founder who doesn't panic, the operator who thinks long-term, the leader who turns pressure into progress. That reputation attracts opportunity. Because in unstable environments, people follow those who remain stable. Chapter 4. Virtue-Driven Business. Why Character Outlasts Strategy. Most businesses don't fail because of bad ideas. They fail because of character decay. Shortcuts get normalized. Pressure bends values. Small compromises stack quietly. And eventually, the organization loses coherence. Stoicism offers a radically different foundation for business, one that doesn't depend on motivation, market conditions, or charisma. It depends on virtue. Not virtue as morality theater, but virtue as operational discipline. The Stoics believe there are 4 core virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. In business, these are not philosophical ideals. They are competitive advantages. Let's start with wisdom. Wisdom is not intelligence. It's judgment over time. Wise businesses resist the temptation of short-term wins that poison long-term trust. They understand second-order consequences. They don't ask, can we do this? They ask, what does this train us to become? Wisdom shows up in sustainable pricing instead of race-to-the-bottom tactics. Long-term customer relationships over quick cash grabs. Strategic patience when others chase trends. Then there is justice. Justice in business means fairness and consistency. It means contracts that aren't designed to trap. It means employees treated as contributors, not expendable assets. It means customers respected even when they can't retaliate. Justice builds something fragile and rare, trust. And trust compounds faster than marketing spend. Companies known for fairness attract better talent, better partners, and more patient customers. In uncertain markets, trust becomes a stabilizer. Next is courage. Courage is often misunderstood as boldness. Stoic courage is different. It's the willingness to do what is right despite fear. Courage is saying no to investors when alignment is wrong, walking away from unethical profit, making unpopular but necessary decisions early. This kind of courage prevents catastrophic corrections later. Finally, temperance. Temperance is restraint. In business, restraint looks like controlled growth instead of reckless expansion, sustainable workloads instead of heroic burnout, saying enough when ego wants more. Temperance protects momentum by preventing self-destruction. Now here's the key insight most people miss. Virtue simplifies decision-making. When values are clear, choices become faster. You don't debate every scenario. You filter decisions through principle. This reduces cognitive load. And reduced cognitive load means better performance under pressure. Virtue also creates internal alignment. Teams don't need constant supervision when expectations are clear. Culture becomes self-regulating. People know what behavior is rewarded, not just what is tolerated. This is how Stoic businesses scale without losing integrity. And integrity is not abstract. It shows up in lower legal risk, stronger brand reputation, loyal customers who forgive mistakes, employees who stay during downturns. Virtue-driven businesses are anti-fragile. They don't just survive stress. They grow more coherent because of it. Compare that to hustle-driven companies. They rely on energy, pressure, and urgency. When those fade, cracks appear. Stoic businesses rely on principle. Principles don't fatigue. This is why Stoicism is not about being good. It's about being durable. When markets shift, when crises hit, when noise increases, virtue acts as an anchor. It prevents panic. It stabilizes behavior. It preserves reputation. And in long games, reputation is currency. Chapter 5, The Stoic Momentum Loop. How to build growth that never burns out. Momentum is not intensity. Intensity spikes and crashes. Momentum compounds and sustains. Most people confuse the two. They sprint, feel productive, exhaust themselves, then disappear for weeks. Stoics build momentum differently. They design loops, systems of behavior that renew energy instead of consuming it. This is the Stoic momentum loop, a continuous cycle of clear perception, rational action, reflective adjustment, executed daily. Let's break it down. 1. Clear perception, starting from reality, not emotion. Every loop begins with seeing clearly. Stoics begin their day by asking, what is actually happening? Not what I fear, not what I hope. They separate facts from interpretations, signals from noise, urgency from importance. This protects them from reactive decision-making. In business, this might mean reviewing metrics without emotional attachment, interpreting feedback as data, not judgment, observing market shifts without panic. Clarity prevents wasted effort. You don't need more action, you need better direction. 2. Rational action. Small, controlled, high-leverage moves. Once perception is clear, action becomes precise. Stoics don't chase productivity. They execute only what aligns with principle and leverage. They ask, what action is within my control? What move creates disproportionate impact? What can I do today that compounds tomorrow? This often results in fewer tasks, but better ones. One strategic conversation, one system improvement, one constraint removed. Rational action avoids burnout because it doesn't rely on emotion. It relies on discipline. and discipline is renewable. 3. Reflective adjustment, learning without self-attack. At the end of the day, Stoics reflect, not to criticize, not to praise, but to calibrate. They ask, where did I act in alignment with my values? Where did emotion override judgment? What lesson did today offer? This closes the loop. Reflection transforms experience into insight, and insight improves tomorrow's perception. This is why Stoic momentum accelerates over time. Others repeat mistakes. Stoics refine behavior. Why this loop works when hustle fails. Hustle relies on willpower. Willpower depletes. The Stoic loop relies on structure. Structure sustains. Instead of pushing harder, Stoics reduce friction, clarify intent, protect energy. Momentum becomes self-feeding. You don't need motivation when behavior is embedded. Applying the loop in volatile markets. Volatility breaks rigid systems. Stoic loops adapt. When conditions change, perception updates, action adjusts, reflection recalibrates. No panic, no ego collapse, just alignment with reality. This is why Stoic-led organizations outperform during instability. They don't resist change, they respond intelligently. The long-term advantage. Over months and years, this loop creates consistent decision quality, emotional resilience, strategic patience, trusted leadership presence. Momentum becomes your default state, not because you work harder, but because you work truer. This is the quiet advantage Stoicism offers. Not domination through force, but durability through clarity. And in business, durability always wins the long game. Chapter 6. Leading Without Noise. Stoic Leadership in an Age of Chaos. In modern business, leadership is loud. Constant updates, endless opinions, public urgency, performative confidence. Most leaders feel pressured to always react, always comment, always project certainty, even when clarity doesn't exist. Stoicism rejects this entirely. Stoic leadership is not about visibility. It is about stability. And in chaotic environments, stability becomes magnetic. People don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the calmest presence, the silent authority of Stoic leaders. Stoic leaders understand something most miss. Authority is not asserted. It is felt. It emerges from consistency of behavior over time. When a leader does not overreact to bad news, does not inflate good news, does not personalize criticism, does not panic under pressure, they become predictable in the best way. Teams feel safe. Decisions feel grounded. Energy stops leaking into drama. This is how Stoic leadership reduces organizational anxiety, because anxiety spreads downward. If the leader is reactive, the team becomes defensive. If the leader is emotional, the culture becomes unstable. If the leader is inconsistent, trust erodes. Stoic leaders absorb pressure instead of transmitting it. Decision-making without emotional contamination. One of the greatest costs in business is emotionally contaminated decisions. These happen when ego seeks validation, fear demands speed, anger seeks control, anxiety seeks certainty. Stoicism doesn't eliminate emotion. It prevents emotion from hijacking judgment. Stoic leaders pause before deciding, not to delay, but to clarify. They ask, what is the rational response here? What principle applies? What outcome matters most long-term? This pause is invisible but powerful. It prevents impulsive hiring. It prevents premature scaling. It prevents destructive internal politics. Over time, this restraint creates a culture of thoughtful execution, managing people through Stoic principles. Stoic leadership is especially effective with people. Instead of trying to control behavior, Stoics focus on clear expectations, consistent standards, fair consequences. They don't manipulate motivation. They design environments. When people know what is expected, what is rewarded, what is unacceptable, Performance improves naturally. Stoics avoid emotional favoritism. They avoid public humiliation. They avoid reactive micromanagement. This creates dignity, and dignity drives loyalty. Handling conflict without escalation. Conflict is inevitable. Drama is optional. Stoic leaders separate issue from identity. They address behavior without attacking character. They correct without humiliating. They listen without conceding authority. This de-escalation preserves relationships while protecting standards. Most conflicts don't need intensity. They need clarity. Stoicism provides that clarity, leading during uncertainty. Here's where Stoic leadership truly shines. When no one knows what will happen, when markets are unstable, when teams feel exposed, people look to the leader's emotional state for cues. Stoic leaders don't promise certainty. They model composure. They say, "We'll respond intelligently. We'll control what we can. We'll adapt as conditions change." This honesty builds trust faster than false optimism. The long-term effect of Stoic leadership. Over time, Stoic leaders develop a reputation. Calm under pressure, fair in conflict, rational in chaos, principled under temptation. That reputation attracts high-quality talent, serious partners, patient capital, loyal customers. Because people don't want excitement in leadership. They want reliability. And reliability is the ultimate competitive advantage. Chapter 7. Long-term strategy. Thinking in years while others chase weeks. Most businesses don't lose because of bad execution. They lose because they are short-sighted. They chase trends. They react to competitors. They optimize for the next quarter. They confuse movement with direction. Stoicism is fundamentally opposed to short-term thinking. Stoics operate on long horizons. They understand that time is not the enemy. Impatience is. Why short-term thinking is so addictive. Short-term strategies feel productive. They deliver fast feedback, immediate validation, visible action, but they carry hidden costs. Constant reacting fractures focus. Trend chasing erodes identity. Quarterly obsession distorts priorities. Stoics recognize that what feels urgent is rarely important. They train themselves to ask, will this matter in 5 years? If the answer is no, energy is withheld. This single filter eliminates enormous waste. Stoic time perspective. Stoics view time differently. They don't see today as isolated. They see today as training for tomorrow. Every decision becomes a vote for the future version of the business. Short-term thinkers ask, how does this help me now? Stoic strategists ask, what kind of company does this create? This shifts everything. Growth becomes deliberate. Brand becomes coherent. Culture becomes durable. Ignoring noise without losing awareness. Stoics are not ignorant of trends. They are selective. They observe the market calmly. They study competitors without envy. They gather information without urgency. Then they wait. Most people feel compelled to respond immediately. Stoics let patterns emerge because clarity improves with time. This restraint prevents strategic whiplash. The power of strategic patience. Strategic patience is misunderstood as inactivity. It is not. It is prepared restraint. Stoics build capability quietly. They strengthen fundamentals. They invest in infrastructure before demand forces it. When opportunity arrives, they move decisively. This is why Stoic businesses often appear lucky. In reality, they were prepared. Positioning over optimization. Most companies obsess over optimization. Stoics focus on positioning. Optimization improves efficiency. Positioning determines relevance. Stoics ask, what problem will exist in the future? What capabilities will matter then? What trust must be built now? They align today's actions with tomorrow's needs. This creates strategic asymmetry. While others compete on price or speed, Stoics compete on inevitability, avoiding the trap of overreaction. Overreaction is a form of fear. Stoics refuse to let fear dictate strategy. When competitors pivot, Stoics evaluate, not imitate. When markets dip, Stoics reassess, not retreat. When hype surges, Stoics observe, not chase. This emotional discipline preserves strategic coherence. And coherence compounds, building a strategy that outlives you. The ultimate Stoic goal is durability, not viral success, not explosive growth, but relevance over decades. Stoic strategies outlast leadership changes, survive market cycles, adapt without losing identity. This is how empires are built quietly, not through noise, but through patience, clarity, and restraint. Chapter 8. Mastering Risk and Uncertainty. Why Stoics win in unpredictable worlds. Most people don't fail because they take risks. They fail because they misunderstand risk. They either avoid it completely or charge into it blindly. Stoicism offers a third path, calculated acceptance. Stoics don't fear uncertainty. They expect it, and expectation changes behavior. Why uncertainty breaks most people. Uncertainty creates psychological pressure. When outcomes are unclear, the mind searches for control. This often results in overplanning, overreacting, hesitation, emotional decision-making. Fear disguises itself as caution. Stoics see this clearly. They understand that uncertainty is not a problem to eliminate. It's a condition to operate within. Once this is accepted, anxiety loses its grip. The Stoic view of risk. Stoics define risk differently. Risk is not danger. Risk is exposure without preparation. When preparation is high, fear decreases, even when stakes are large. Stoic preparation focuses on strengthening judgment, clarifying principles, building adaptability. They don't predict outcomes. They prepare responses. Negative visualization, mental stress testing. One of the most powerful Stoic practices is premeditatio malorum, the anticipation of adversity. This is not pessimism. It is rehearsal. Stoics imagine, what if this deal fails? What if revenue drops? What if leadership is challenged? What if reputation is tested? Then they ask, what would I do? This removes surprise. And surprise is what paralyzes most people. When adversity arrives, Stoics are calm. Not because they are fearless, but because they are familiar with the possibility. Risk without emotional attachment. Stoics take action without emotional dependency on outcomes. This is crucial. They commit fully, but detach internally. Why? Because attachment distorts judgment. When ego is tied to success, fear of failure increases. When fear increases, clarity disappears. Stoics protect clarity by releasing attachment. They focus on quality of decision, alignment with principle, integrity of execution. Outcomes follow over time, failing without breaking. Failure is inevitable. Collapse is optional. Stoics separate failure from identity. A failed product is not a failed founder. A lost deal is not a lost future. This emotional separation preserves resilience. Stoics extract lessons quickly. They adjust without shame. They move forward without self-punishment. This ability alone gives them massive advantage. While others hesitate after loss, Stoics are already adapting, building anti-fragile systems. Stoics don't just survive risk, they design for it. They diversify dependencies, avoid single points of failure, build financial buffers, train people to think independently. Their systems improve under stress. This is anti-fragility. Uncertainty becomes a filter. Weak competitors fall away, while Stoics remain. Calm as a strategic weapon. In high-risk environments, calm is rare, and rarity creates power. Stoic calm prevents panic decisions, signals confidence to others, stabilizes teams and partners, attracts opportunity during chaos. People trust calm leaders with their capital, careers, and loyalty. This is not accidental. It is trained. Why Stoics win long-term? Because they don't demand certainty to act. They demand only clarity of values and preparedness of mind. Uncertainty becomes terrain, not threat. And those who can move confidently in unstable terrain always outlast those who wait for perfect conditions. Chapter 9. Legacy and Meaning. Building something that survives you. At some point, every serious builder confronts a quiet question. Not during success, not during momentum, but in still moments after the noise fades. What is all this actually for? Revenue alone doesn't answer it. Growth alone doesn't satisfy it. Recognition fades faster than expected. Stoicism prepares you for this question long before it arrives. Because Stoics never confuse achievement with meaning. Why legacy is not about fame. Most people misunderstand legacy. They think it means being remembered, being admired, being talked about. Stoics define legacy differently. Legacy is what continues to function well after you're gone. A business that collapses without its founder has no legacy. A culture that decays under pressure has no legacy. A system that requires constant force has no legacy. Stoics build structures that endure. Meaning comes from alignment, not applause. Stoics do not seek validation. They seek alignment between values, actions, consequences. When these are aligned, meaning emerges naturally. This alignment creates internal peace. You no longer need to justify yourself. You no longer chase approval. You no longer measure worth through external metrics. This freedom is rare and powerful. The responsibility of influence. Every successful business creates influence. Stoics treat influence as a responsibility, not a reward. They ask, what behaviors does this company normalize? What incentives does it create? What kind of people does it reward? Because influence shapes future behavior, whether intentional or not. Stoics choose deliberately. They design cultures that reward discipline over chaos, encourage honesty over politics, value long-term thinking over short-term gain. This is leadership beyond profit, building something worth maintaining. Stoics ask a simple but brutal question. Would I want someone else to inherit this? This question forces clarity. If the answer is no, something is wrong. Stoics adjust early, before growth locks dysfunction into place. They build businesses that are understandable, ethical, sustainable, coherent, because complexity without clarity collapses under time. Success without regret. One of the Stoic ideals is a good life. Not an easy one, not a flashy one, a good one. A life where effort aligns with values, where challenges strengthen character, where success does not cost integrity. Stoic builders aim for this. They want to win, without becoming someone they don't respect. The quiet satisfaction of Stoic success. Stoic success doesn't shout. It feels calm, stable, earned. There is no frantic need to prove anything, just steady progress and internal clarity. This is the reward grit culture never mentions. Passing the torch. Eventually, every leader steps back. Stoics prepare for this moment early. They build people, not dependencies. Teach principles, not just tactics. Leave behind systems that think, not just execute. Their absence does not create chaos. It creates continuity. That is legacy. Chapter 10. The Stoic Way Forward. Living and leading without strain. By now, one truth should feel undeniable. Sustained success does not come from force. It comes from alignment. Alignment between perception and reality. Alignment between action and principle. Alignment between ambition and restraint. Stoicism is not something you add to your life. It is something you remove noise with. Stoicism as a daily orientation, not a technique. Most people look for tools. Stoicism offers orientation. It does not ask you to memorize quotes or perform rituals. It asks something simpler and harder. Respond deliberately. Every day, you are presented with the same raw materials. Uncertainty, pressure, opportunity, emotion, time. The Stoic difference is not circumstance. It is response. A Stoic day is not dramatic. It is disciplined. You wake up grounded in what you control. You move through decisions without urgency. You act decisively where it matters. You release outcomes you cannot command. This is not passive. It is precise, replacing emotional effort with structural strength. Most people rely on emotional effort to move forward. They push themselves with fear. They motivate themselves with comparison. They punish themselves for imperfection. This works briefly. Stoicism replaces emotional effort with structure. Instead of forcing productivity, you clarify priorities, remove friction, reduce exposure to noise, anchor behavior in principle. This is why Stoic momentum doesn't collapse under stress. There is nothing to prop up. The structure holds. Calm is not the absence of ambition. One of the greatest misconceptions about Stoicism is that it dulls ambition. The opposite is true. Stoicism purifies ambition. It removes ego-driven urgency, validation-seeking behavior, fear-based overextension. What remains is focused ambition. You still aim high. You still pursue excellence. You simply stop bleeding energy along the way. This makes you more dangerous, not less. The long game becomes natural when emotion no longer hijacks judgment. Long-term thinking becomes effortless. You stop asking, what I need to do right now? You start asking, what kind of person and business am I becoming? This reframes everything. Daily actions gain meaning. Small decisions compound. Patience becomes strategic. You stop chasing momentum. Momentum follows you. Stoicism in pressure moments. The true test of philosophy is pressure. Stoicism prepares you for moments when plans fail, criticism arrives, results disappoint, control disappears. In those moments, Stoicism gives you 3 anchors. Control your response. Act with integrity. Accept what follows. This prevents collapse, not because life becomes easier, but because you become steadier, becoming unshakable without becoming rigid. Stoics are not rigid. They are adaptable. They adjust strategies without abandoning values. They evolve methods without losing identity. This balance is rare. It allows you to grow without drifting, to change without fracturing, to succeed without self-betrayal. The quiet power of consistency. Stoicism does not promise dramatic transformation. It delivers something better. Consistency. The ability to show up without forcing, decide without panic, lead without noise, rest without guilt. Over time, this consistency becomes undeniable strength. People trust it. Markets reward it. Life feels less chaotic within it. The path continues. There is no finish line here. Stoicism is not something you complete. It is something you return to daily, quietly, deliberately, and in a world addicted to speed, noise, and exhaustion. That discipline alone will set you apart. Not because you do more, but because you finally stop doing what never mattered.